All right, good morning, New Life. I'm Stephen Fields. I'm a retired Lieutenant Colonel from the Air Force, and I started attending New Life Christian Fellowship back in 2000. So my wife and I married in 1971. She was a public school librarian and a wonderful lady, but she was a type 1 diabetic. So we knew early on, prior to even being married, when we talked about wanting to have kids, we knew early on we were not going to be able to have probably more than 1 or 2 because of her health condition. That first pregnancy was very problematic because of her health issues. And yet when the child was born in February of '73, she was perfect. There was no problem with her whatsoever. So that was my first daughter, that was Heather. When the second child was getting ready to come, and that particular pregnancy was flawless. It was smooth as glass. There were no problems, no issues. When they came back at midnight, Susan's vitals were good, but the baby had actually passed away. And so several weeks later, I was sitting at the lead recruiter's desk getting ready to conduct business at 9 in the morning on a Monday. And he had been on an adoption list with a lawyer. Back during that era, you had to be on such a list to get a child for anywhere from 1 to 5 years. And he and his wife were starting to have a struggle. We're talking about divorce. So when the lawyer called to offer them a child, he turned it down, and he wanted me to stay and hear the conversation for some reason. So I was sitting right next to his desk. And when he hung up, the Lord gave me a very strong impetus to say, ask him, is there a plan B that lawyer has for that baby? And so I asked him, and he said he didn't have any idea. Was I interested? And I said, yes, I am. I said, Susan has never quite gotten over the loss of Holly, and I'd like to look into this. And so he put me on the phone, called back the lawyer and put me on the phone, and we talked, and the lawyer said, how soon can you be down here? And I'd like to emphasize, during this era, things like this just did not happen unless God was involved with it. The lawyer called back to say, I want to schedule an appointment with you in the morning at St. Vincent's Hospital. I want you to meet the pediatricians and see this baby firsthand at 9 in the morning. So we did that, and like I said, the Lord scheduled us to go in, and we got in there, and as we walked by the front of the nursery, I had a big glass wall, and all those beautiful babies were out there in these clear bassinets, and there was this one nurse who was standing there mid-range that had this beautiful baby, and as I looked at it, I told Susan, I said, if our baby is half as cute as that one, I'm going to be thrilled. And it turned out she brought that child to our meeting with the pediatricians, and that was in fact my daughter, Stephanie. Well, I've been doing men's prison ministry for New Life over 25 years now, and so we've met a lot of men in various circumstances, and as you probably would imagine, a good number of these men have had either no dad in the home or had a dad leave at a midpoint, leaving them abandoned, or they were like my dad, physically present but emotionally absent. And most of these men that are in the prison, you find, have not been able to make that adjustment and reconcile themselves with their dad. And we find that the inmates that have had a good father relationship are the ones that heal the fastest. They make a more of a concerted effort to bridge the gap and reconcile with their families. And we had this one gentleman, we told him, he said, we think you need to call your dad and see about, he may not agree with you, but you need to tell him that you'd like to reconcile and whatnot. And this young fella, he got really hostile. Following week, when he came back to class, he had taken our word and he called his dad. His dad told him he loved him and he forgave him and he'd be there when he got out. And the difference between the first day and the reconciliation was amazing. The look on that young man's face, it was like a whole new person had come into the group. I like to encourage all fathers. You're going to go through your challenges, but if you're walking with the Lord, He'll get you through all of them. It may seem that you're up against the wall sometimes, but it's all about breakthrough. And as I shared in my story, there was time and time again where we had doubts and concerns and issues, but God took us through all of them. Jesus was Lord of all.